Okay.
Okay. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Paratalk One-on-One. And tonight's guest is Wayne Evans. He's the case manager for the West Houston Paranormal Society, as well as a managing member for Bad Wolf Events. Say hi.
So, hola, ¿cómo estás? No, hi, everybody.
So, tonight's episode is going to be called Witness because Wayne has witnessed a lot of things in the last 8 years that he's been on the West Houston Paranormal Society, both while investigating and outside of the investigations, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So before we started recording the show, I asked you to kind of go back and think about some of the investigations you did and some of the things that actually stood out the most to you. And we're going to just kind of go over those stories. So do you want to go ahead and take it from here?
Sure. First off, let me start by saying I've always believed in the paranormal, but until I actually joined this group and started hanging out with you, I didn't really see it. Now I've actually seen the stuff, and people ask me all the time, is the supernatural and paranormal real? Have you ever seen anything that you can't explain? And the answer to that, of course, is yes. As you'll hear in this video, there are some things that stick out in my mind as far as things that I've seen that can't be explained.
Okay. So let's start with, is there a specific location that you've chosen?
Well, yes, there's one of the specific locations that pretty much is what's what I'm looking for? Kind of like a mecca. Everybody wants to go there. Is Waverly Hills. We actually were fortunate enough to go there and investigate it. Now, while we were there, I was actually walking with two other investigators, and it was a very windy night. So none of the doors there have handles on them. So the doors were opening and closing with pretty good regularity. So there was one door that was pretty close to where we were at that closed. And so, as you'll see on the video, the door closed and the video comes up with me saying, I apologize. I'm not sure if that was you because it's pretty windy. I'm just being honest. That being said, I told it, if that was you, can you do it again? While I had the video camera on, can you do it for me? Well, probably about 5 to 8 seconds later, that door actually closed. And not only do you hear it closing, but then you hear the sound of it locking. And the thing that impressed me so much about that was that there's no handles on the door. So for it to close and then make the sound of locking like that, like somebody flipped a deadbolt, is pretty impressive. As you'll see in the video, the door then opens up, probably about yay wide, not very wide. And I had said, okay, we'll go check it out. So we head towards the door, and my camera goes off the door, kind of around where I'm pointing at, where I'm walking. When we get to the door itself, now it's open about 3 feet. So the door went from opening about 6 inches to about 3 feet. Yeah, we're sorry that we can't tell if it was you or not, but it's very windy here. We want to make sure it was you, not the wind. So can you close that door? That sounded like a lot.
Did you get that?
Yeah, I got it.
You got it on video?
Yep.
Yeah. It's opening now. It sounded like it locked.
And it's not as wide this time either. You want to go look in that room?
Sure.
Lead the way, big man.
Oh wow, it's wide now. And it wasn't moving anymore. It was just sitting there. So
Right.
The fact that was pretty impressive, but mainly what impressed me about that door was the locking sound. Because you can hear it plain as day. And there are no handles on that door. So that was very impressive to me as
Right.
far as
And
evidence
you
goes.
did have two other witnesses to those
Yeah.
events.
Mm-hmm.
Two other people from other teams.
Mm-hmm.
Correct?
And you
Also
can
very
actually
quickly.
hear them on the video.
Okay, very quickly, I do want to apologize about the connection. As you can see, when he moves, it kind of stalls, but we can hear you just fine. Okay.
Now, my
Um.
connection, you move it stalls,
Uh,
but I can hear you just fine.
okay. Um. So that is really interesting. I know Waverly Hills is a very, like you said, popular place for ghost hunters. I mean, it's probably one of the top places that most people want to try um, to go to. So yes, when the WHS team was able to go, that was a wonderful experience for everyone. So I'm glad you brought that one up. Okay, so what else is on your list as a favorite standout?
So there's a place in Mineral Wells, Texas called Haunted Hill House. And
Mhm.
they report having 4 or 5 different spirits in the house. Well, upstairs, they have a room that they call Joshua's room. And they say they have a spirit of a little boy in that room. So, and also they said that there's a ball in that room, and they said that's his favorite ball. So what we did, we put the ball in the chair, and then we had a SLS camera uh, on that chair, as well as the chair next to that one. And what that does, of course, as you know, is it will pick up on anomalies, and it'll make them appear as stick figures. So the theory is they'll show up as stick figures when you can't see them with your naked eye. And so the SLS camera, in theory, can pick them up. So that being said, we had the ball there in the room. We moved the ball and threatened to take the ball home. We didn't. We left it there in the room. Later on, we went up. We had an investigator go up there. We call him Ghost Bait just because of this. But he was up there in the room, and while he was there, I mean, you can see his stick figure, and a smaller one appeared in that chair where the ball was. And there was quite a bit of an interaction in between. Um, Stuff like he would hold his hand out and then, would ask that that spirit would touch his hand. And of course, he felt the tingling, but on the SLS camera, you actually saw the small stick figure reach out and touch his hand.
Just trying not to get in front of the camera. So, I'm sorry. So, howdy, Jacob. I'm gonna turn off the light. And now we're just firing by ourselves. So, can you touch my hand? I'm gonna pull this out of my pocket so they can hear me. Because I don't want to shout, okay? And they're gonna talk back. Is he still there? It's okay. Alright, I'm gonna put it just a tad bit closer. Are we friends now? I'm gonna touch the ball. I'm touching the ball right now. Yeah, I can feel you.
And so he was actually touching him, and then they would, high five. That happened as well. And then it ended up with the smaller stick figure. Ended up, you could see him reaching his arms out, and he actually, we call it giving a hug to the investigator, because he reaches his arms out, and then you see the small stick figure kind of disappear into the larger one, the investigators. And so he just kind of disappeared into him, and gave him a big hug.
Pinprick in my hand. It looks like he wants to hug you. Aw. Come here. Come here. Put your hand out. Put your hands out for a hug. Stay right there. Put your hand out for a hug. Come here. It's okay. I like you. You're awesome. Awesome. Maybe we'll give him a hug. Yeah. Oh, you're awesome. I don't know who you are. I'm sorry. It's the best I can do. Oh, you're awesome. Alright? Yeah? I'm gonna keep my hand, right? Alright. I'm gonna hug you one more time. Oh, I'm sorry. I dropped my flashlight. Dropped my flashlight.
So we call it, and of course, our investigator said that he could feel like a tingling all around his chest area, right where the smaller stick figure had disappeared into. So I thought that was pretty cool. And to see that actually playing out was pretty amazing, because
Right.
you do see that on TV and on the shows, but to be honest, half of the stuff on the shows people don't believe. However, to see that actually happening, was pretty amazing for me.
Right. And it was amazing for all of us actually that were there to witness that. I'm glad you shared that one. Um, I believe that it was possible that because it was Ghost Bait who we put in that room, and he too is young, he's the youngest investigator. Maybe that's why he was able to interact with this ghost, because I don't believe that the rest of us, we tried and nothing was happening for us until we put him in that room. So that was pretty awesome to witness.
Yeah, I
Okay,
thought
what
so.
else? What else stood out to you?
So one of the things that people ask me all the time is, when you go somewhere or you go to a home to do a cleansing, whatever it may be, does anything ever come home with you? And the answer is yes, it does. Um, we've heard growls where we are. We've been able to look down the hallway, and see shadow people running across the hallway. Um, However, usually it's pretty benign stuff. There's no ill intent. However, once in a while it does get a little creepy. And one of the instances that I thought was wild was, we were there at the house and you were feeling bad ever since we came back. And yeah, it had been a couple of days, I believe. And finally, you just were feeling really bad. Well, we had two other investigators on our team come over, and you went outside and you got sick. And then one of them went outside to help you, and she got sick. And then the third one went out to help you, and she got sick. So to see that spread, go from one to the other, um, was definitely something different. And then to top that incident off, they actually had you in the back seat of the car, and they were driving around looking for a Catholic church that was open, that they could take you to. However, they couldn't find one that was open, and later on they said you were talking some language that nobody knew what it was. It wasn't in Spanish, so they're not sure what language it was. Um, but fortunately for us, um, your mom, who has been in the Catholic Church for years, was close to us. So they took you, excuse me, to her, and she ended up having to pray over you, and then you felt better. But to actually, and that sounds like something that you would see like in a scary movie. But to actually see that and realize that that protection, for us is something that we have to think about. It really made me start thinking about that kind of thing. We have to do our own protection when we get back to our home base.
Right. And that actually happened over a long period of time. It was probably about a week's worth of not feeling well, my demeanor changing, I couldn't sleep, and it just kept escalating and getting worse as the days passed until I just could not deal with it anymore, and I had to ask for help because I remember us trying to cleanse the home and doing
Mm-hmm.
prayers ourselves and stuff, and it just wasn't working. So that was very intense for me to go through as well.
I'm sure.
Um, Give me another one. What else has stood out
So
to you over the years?
there's one that stands out to me. We were actually going to a client's home for a cleansing or
Okay.
to see what was going on. Now,
Okay.
on the way there in the car, you came up with a name or an initial, I'm sorry, an initial of somebody's name. Um, and you picked up that this man was angry at his wife and that he had committed suicide. Now, we had not talked to the client yet, so we didn't know anything about this. However, when we got there and during the interview process, excuse me, we found out that the initial of the man's first name was confirmed, and it was also confirmed that he had been angry at his wife and when he had committed suicide. So everything you picked up on, we confirmed it once we got there with the interview process that we do. So to know that stuff like that you can pick up on, um, it really sticks out to me. An example for that is when you tell me, it used to be when you would say, "Oh, my arm is hurting," when you were starting to feel something, I used to say, "Oh, are you okay?" Now, when you tell me that, first thing I ask is, "Are you getting any information?"
Mhm.
Because we have figured out that if you get info, you have to say it. Well, even if it's just to me, but you have to get that info out, or else it won't leave you alone.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah.
And what sticks out about that specific case that we went on was the fact that I think at that time I was still iffy as to whether or not I was really getting information, and I wasn't like confident yet. So to be validated once I got there with the images I was getting and stuff, that made me feel good because I was like, "Oh my God, I'm really going to be able to help people now more so than I initially believed."
Mm-hmm.
But I also have to thank everybody on the team for standing behind me and also um believing in what I was doing and what I was saying, because that means a lot too. It's hard to have to say something and then have all these people look at you like, okay, you're just crazy. you know So I appreciate that, and I'm glad that those stuck out to you. That means a lot. Now, I'm going to mention a story here that stands out to me. The very first.
Wait, hold on. I want to see if we're thinking of the same thing. Are you thinking about your town? The
The
very
very
first time
first
we
time.
went when
Yeah.
I was hiding? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so the very first Yorktown investigation that we did as a team, um, we didn't know each other that well. This was pretty close to the time that we first became, members. So we're talking about maybe 3 months worth of knowing each other. And I remember Wayne investigating with me and James in the basement. And the rule was nobody investigates by themselves. You always have to have a little buddy with you, okay, in case anything happened. And I remember being downstairs, and then I remember James saying, I have to go upstairs. I forgot my recorder. So he went upstairs, leaving the two of us in the basement. Next thing I know, I turn around and you are gone. You just went poof and disappeared. And here I'm standing in this dark ass basement, freaking out because I didn't know the place. And I'm looking for you and I can't find you. And I'm like, what the heck? James finally comes back down and I'm like, where's Wayne? What happened to him? Where'd he go? So, what exactly happened to you at that moment when I was looking for you?
So, what happened was going back to the protecting yourself. Um, there are several places in your town that are rooms under the stairs. And when you go in there, you cannot see your hand in front of your face. I mean, it is pitch black. And
Right.
so I had my audio recorder with me. And on that audio recorder, there are times when I'm under there and you can hear me say, I could just stay under here and nobody would ever find me. And that's not something I would normally say, but you can hear it plain. It's me saying it. Um, and then there's another time where that same night, um, we're in the basement area, and we're over by there, um, like a storage area.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked over and I saw you coming with the camera, and it just went through my head. I don't want to be on the camera, so I went away from the camera and hid again in the shadows where nobody could see me. Um, that's also the night that I lost track of about 35 minutes of time. Um,
Right.
I remember it was 3:30 in the morning, and we were all outside on the stairs, and we were making a joke about something. I don't remember what it was. I think I remember what it was, but anyway, the joke, you could hear me laughing about it and talking, but it sounded like I had malice in my speech. Um, very much so, like very being, smart ass type. Well, that was 3:30. The next thing I remember is it was 4:05 in the morning, and I believe it was me, you, and I think it was James. And we were up in the nuns' quarters, and I do not remember leaving the stairs, going inside, going up into the nuns. I don't remember any of that. But, everybody tells me that's what I did, but I have no memory of doing that whatsoever. And it was about 35
Right.
minutes of time that I lost.
Now, I do remember there was a time that we did go into the chapel there, and we asked you to stand at the pulpit and read. And while you were reading, I was sitting next to Shannon, and we were just getting angry, like, I mean, like hateful, angry. And I told Shannon, if he keeps reading, I'm going to get up and go over there and I'm just going to smack him, because you were just, I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was just the atmosphere, or if there really was like something that was messing with all of our heads while we were there. What I do recall is pulling you aside at one point because you were seriously being a jerk that night, not only to myself, but to most everybody around you. You would shoot out these smart ass comments to everybody and just be a jerk. And I remember pulling you aside and I was like, what the hell is wrong with you? You know, I may not know you, but I know you enough to know that this isn't you. What the hell is going on? And you were just like shrugging me off and like, I don't know what you're talking about. You know, I don't know what's going on. And I was like, you're being such an asshole. What,
And
you know,
see,
what the hell is wrong with you?
I have no memory of that
Right.
conversation
But
whatsoever.
you were smirking, and you
Hmm.
were just like, again, being a jerk. And I think at some point, I don't remember how far later this was, but you finally calmed down, became your usual silly, self, and it was gone. But there was such a long time, it seemed like you were just being affected by something very sinister. Something was messing with your head.
Hmm.
And I know this was the very first investigation that we ever did together. And I believe that we were just so inexperienced when it came to these things, and just thought, oh, we're just going to go into this haunted place. Nothing's going to happen, blah, blah, blah. You know, so I
Hmm.
do warn people that do decide to go, whether it's some little ghost road or any kind of haunted place, um, please learn how to protect yourself. Get some type of protection for yourself, because you never know what's going to happen. Now, you have to realize that Wayne is a big guy, and for someone like him, with his stature and the usual attitude that he has, he shouldn't be that easily influenced.
Yeah, at that time that happened, I was 6'2" and I weighed 320 pounds. So you weren't going to move me. If you did,
Right.
I mean, you weren't going to influence me. If you did, you would know you've been in a fight. It
Right.
just, and you're right, it doesn't matter. You can be the biggest guy in the world. It doesn't matter because they don't physically move you. It's they go after the ones with the spirits with the ill intent. They go after your fears. They go after your feelings, and they go after what you think, and they affect
Right.
your emotions that way, and you don't even realize it's going on.
Right. Right. Well, I thank you, Wayne, for sharing these stories with everybody. Those were really good examples. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me and to share your stories. Appreciate it.
You're very well. No
And
problem.
and you have a good
Adios,
evening.
everybody. Vaya con Dios.